Okay, I have pretty close to 6 p.m. on June 17th, so I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. If we could all stand to pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Van's coming in now.
Okay. Thank you. We are at item 1B, and I just want to confirm the notice of posting. Dr. McCormick?
Yes, it was indeed posted in the SAU office, on the website, respective schools, and it was sent to the town offices.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, our plan under item 2 is to enter a non-public session, and I think we could probably stay here, which would be easier and allow us to get going sooner, if you don't mind, Bruce. So, at this point, I would entertain a motion to go into non-public.
So moved.
Made by Ruby and seconded by Paul. And the reasons are listed on the agenda, which are multiple this evening. I will call the roll. Alexandria.
Yes.
Bridgewater, yes. Bristol.
Yes.
Danbury.
Yes.
Groton.
Yes.
Hebron.
Yes.
New Hampton. Okay, thank you. We have entered non-public session at, okay, it is 7:35, and I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We're back in public session. That brings us to line 3. We're going to start at 7:35. On line 4, we have approval or modification of agenda as approved or modified. Are there any changes to this evening's agenda as presented? Okay, hearing none, I would suggest that we have an approved agenda. At intercommunications, line 5, I'd ask that those of you that are present from the public to sign in on the sign-in sheets. There's one in one direction, vertical and landscape. I have no idea which is which, but I can't remember that. One is for tonight's attendance. If you could print your name and town, I'd appreciate it. The other is for requesting an SAU packet, or to be sent an email packet for what we get from the SAU. We're now at item 5C, which is public comment. I don't see any elected officials in attendance. I do see some members of the public. Is anyone present that would like to speak this evening? Thank you for your patience, by the way, in waiting for us to come back. Okay, seeing no public comment, our faculty staff liaison is not present, nor is our student council representative. Moving on to item 6C, school board minutes for approval. We have before you the minutes of the April 29th special meeting called to review the K through 8 committee report. Does anyone have any corrections
I do.
besides myself? Ruby?
And thank goodness Mrs. Gelderman's here. I think your first name's spelled wrong in these. How is it spelled? Yeah, it was spelled Jillian. So. and
Julaine.
That is on page 3 and again on page 4.
I have a minor editorial on Suzanne Colby. The second line is find out, we don't know if it is feasible, not is feasible. If it's feasible.
If it is feasible.
It is feasible.
I caught that as well. Did you get that correction, Julaine? Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think there's quite an omission here. I should have made quite a statement, and there's nothing in here about it. Then I got criticized in the paper for making it, so I'd like to know what the heck I know we're missing something here.
What
Section.
would you like to say,
I
Lloyd?
don't know, I'd have to read my thing, I didn't bring it with me on that, but I read from a sheet, and read the whole thing, and then one of the local selectmen chastised me in the paper, so I think I at least should have it in the minutes.
When was that?
That was right when, after,
So you're looking in section 5, right?
yeah, we got quite a ways into it before, near the end. I looked a couple times, I couldn't find it, and I said, well,
It's not in there.
huh? Not in there, That's- I wondered there's some more people missing, you know?
Okay, so you need to supply your written statement to
I wonder how many more are missing,
Leah.
because I got the tape, and I played the tape back, it's in there.
Okay, good point. I
Yeah.
think if you can supply your written statement to Leah, that can be appended. Okay,
I
as
don't know where
noted.
exactly it was inserted. I think.
One of the things that we've adopted that you may notice, at the very beginning of these minutes, there's a block that states that these minutes are in draft format and shall remain as such as the legal record in compliance with RSA 91A in their written archival form. They're likely to contain errors and may be in need of correction, which can only be done in public in a properly posted subsequent meeting of the school board. Accordingly, you are referred to the minutes of a subsequent, that is, future but not necessarily the next sequential meeting of the board to identify what may have been changed as an approved and properly modified record in compliance with law. So to Lloyd's point, the fact that his statement has been omitted, certainly in error, I don't believe it to have been deliberate,
No, I don't. I just thought maybe the
is
sheet
the
was missing or
reason that
something.
we're now putting that block in front of all of our minutes that are approved. Once the minutes are put on the website, they become the legal record. That cannot be changed unless it's done in a public meeting like this. Can't be like, we found a correction, please change it on the web as a note to the SAU. So all business is conducted in public. That was a recommendation recently of the School Board Association, so I'm going to add Lloyd to provide written statement, okay? In section 5 at the very end.
And-
Anything else?
Yeah, on page 4, section 5 at the end, Amy Fairbank, that line should have the word "on" after the word "commentary."
Got it, okay. Anyone else?
Just a spelling of a name.
Sue?
Page 6, under public present, Alexandria, that's Nguyen, that's Nguyen.
Nguyen.
Yep.
Okay. Corrected the spelling, okay. I have one on page 5, line 8A. The statement, the sentence should read, "We should allow the new superintendent," and insert the word "time," to review the report. Anyone else? Okay, is there a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved. Second.
Okay, hold on a second, please. Moved by Paul, seconded by Lloyd. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 7-0-0. Thank you. There are other minutes. We're at item 7 now on your agenda. And the other minutes that are included in green are your policy committee minutes, the RSA 195 committee meeting minutes, and the June 4th football field oversight committee minutes. Any comments on those? I noticed in the policy that we did The insurance stuff, so. On the football field oversight, Dan, in the minutes, there was discussion on the liability of volunteers who work on the project. Are you prepared to speak to that later? Item 3. Remember, you're gonna take action with the insurance guys?
I don't recall that portion. I know I prepared the motion for consideration for tonight.
Right. Remember that discussion, Peter?
I remember the discussion. I thought the indication was if there were volunteers that were covered. I thought they were going to follow up on something.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm delinquent in that.
Just as a follow-up.
Okay, I will absolutely.
Okay. Any other comments?
Just,
Sue?
we have volunteers who volunteer for the town of Alexandria, and somehow they manage to cover that. I think they have to fill out a form.
We have volunteers
John.
in the district too that are already covered by
Yeah.
district's PLT policy, member agreement. I will recheck that.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize for that.
A minor point, if I may. I noticed they
Lloyd?
never put a starting time on these meetings with the football game. Should there be one there's a quitting time when the meeting is adjourned?
Yeah, there should be a
But there
little
never is
bit,
when they start.
there should be a little bit more information as well. I've been a little reluctant to enforce that.
I don't know
But we
what it
started at 5 PM that day.
All in goes to half an hour, fast.
Please make that notation. Okay, we're at item 8, correspondence and reports that were included in our packet. The principal's report, there will be a special education report starting soon. And of course, our business administrator's report. Any comments or concerns?
I did ask, the high school report is a single page.
You asked for it.
The high school report, when you read it, there was a blank page after it.
Oh,
The report itself is actually only one page.
yeah. The contents of the correspondence and the reports is a motivating reason for those that might be interested to sign up for a digital version of this packet. Okay, hearing no further or any comment on any of the Section 8 stuff, I'd like to move on to item 9, which is the discussion items for consideration and action by the board. Item 9A is the policy for first reading. I would turn to Jeff as our policy committee chair to make any comment.
First policy we have to look at is school board member indemnification. The change in the policy is a wording change. We're removing the word insurance and replacing it with liability coverage. And then adding a paragraph that says, for the purpose of this policy, liability coverage may include insurance or membership in a risk management pool as long as the coverage provided specifically includes the indemnification requirements of this policy.
Can you elaborate on the discussion for the rest of the board's edification?
There was some concern that since we don't technically have insurance, that we're a member of a risk pool, that the policy didn't spell out the acceptable nature of that membership. So there wasn't a lot of discussion. just a wording change.
Okay.
It was passed back through, I believe, the business administrator checked it, and yes, they found it acceptable, so.
Okay, thank you. Care to comment on the others at this point?
Yeah, if we want to move right along. IHBG was submitted to us for review by the superintendent. Apparently, there have been some legal changes. So the procedure section was struck out.
What is the title of this policy?
Home education instruction.
Okay, thank you. Just taking into consideration those who might be watching on TV.
Apparently, the laws changed, and we needed to change the policy to meet those changes. Essentially, the change is a cut and paste from the law. The procedures have been put into our policy to replace the procedures that were there. So we are in perfect compliance with the law by using the law as part of the policy.
And in essence, it gives parents more responsibility, right?
Yeah, it very clearly spells out what's acceptable for home education and for documentation requirements. It's a very specific policy.
And they do not have to funnel everything through the district.
Yes, now they can go through any approved education provider. And that's spelled out in the policy as to who they could submit that to.
I'm just saying it for the record.
I appreciate the help.
Just as a point of information, I read today that homeschooling is increasing at a rate of 7 times the enrollment of public school enrollment from K through 12. They expect that to be the case over the next 10 years. And one of the speculations for that reason is that children who have been homeschooled are now of age to homeschool their own children and are not taking advantage of public education. I thought that was fairly significant to mention this evening. The next policy is on healthy school wellness policy procedures. I see it finally made it to the board. Thank you.
Yeah, the healthy school wellness policy procedures and the wellness policy overall is actually two pieces here. I don't see JLCF as part of the packet. The changes were made in this policy, and they are extensive, to comply with the laws as far as health and nutrition for our students. The Health and Wellness Committee got together and spent, I understand, a great amount of time going through this. We actually kicked it back for some clarification, make it easier to understand, and they did that without a complaint and produced a document that was easy for us to understand that complies with all the regulations. They really should be commended for their work on this. We looked it over, we read it through, it all makes sense. Didn't find anything objectionable, and I was really concerned what we were going to find. We discussed it at length. There were some areas that I would have liked to have seen more emphasis on, such as the appeal to the students of the meals and the attractiveness and the quality of the ingredients, but we determined that the policy was quite comprehensive and that the things that I was concerned about aren't easily quantifiable. They're not easily measured. So if we can meet this policy, we're doing a good job. several pages long. It covers all aspects, not only of what's served in the cafeteria, but what's served on school property after school hours. It covers any vending, it covers curriculum, it covers classroom parties, it eliminates using food as a reward. It's a very, very in-depth policy.
I noticed that on page 6, there's a section on physical education, which is emphasized, integrating physical activity into the classroom setting, recess comments, physical activity opportunities before and after school, physical activity and punishment, physical activity education and promotion, safe routes to school, and even a section on staff wellness as well. So this is pretty comprehensive, and I'm glad we were able to get it done so that we can get it in place in time for September.
It does come with our full recommendation, and I've got to say that I'm really impressed with it.
I know the Wellness Committee worked hard on trying to get that together with a lot of changes along the way, so glad to see it.
I just had a couple of
Sue?
small edits.
Mhm.
I didn't pick these up before, but on page 1, under B, nutrition, the second line, I think after brain development, there should not be an and. I think that's just part of that list, and there's an and before ability. And I non-fried vegetables kind of stopped me, but that's the way it's written, I believe. Let's see, page 2, on number 5, first line, at the end of that line, hands-on, shouldn't that be 2 separate words?
Page 2.
Page 2,
What
yeah.
line?
Under number 5.
Hands-on, yeah.
Yeah, number 5, first line, at the right-hand end of that line.
Should be hyphenated.
Should it?
Yeah. Because it's being used as an adjective.
Yeah.
So Jeff, are you gonna own the corrections?
I'm making notes right now.
Okay. Anything else, Sue?
Not that I saw.
I
No.
I have one little tiny one on page 1, very bottom. Eaten isn't actually a word, it's something people say, so that should be changed. so
Where is that?
The very bottom of page 1. It should just say served or consumed. It's like gotten, gonna, wanna, shoulda, those kinds of words.
Where is
So,
Yeah, I see it. Well, that's one of
She said it's not a word.
Since you found that one, you're gonna have to post some sort of,
I said consumed, yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and Jeff, I had a question for you. Did you say that there should also be policy JLCF in addition to dash P?
Yes.
So that's, well, the technicality here is that's what we're considering on the agenda, but that's not what's been presented. So is there another copy?
I don't recall if JLCF actually has any changes in it.
Is it the mother
Bill?
document?
Was this, Jeff, when they tried to combine both the policy and the procedure so that it was in one policy?
No, they actually presented it to us both separately, but I don't remember if there
But
were
when
any
they
changes.
merged it per,
When we gave it back to them?
well,
Right, but
no,
when we gave it back, what we got back was 2 policies. But I don't remember if JLCF actually had any changes, or if it was just all in the procedure.
I thought it was all changed and incorporated into one policy.
No,
That's more my
not what they-
reflection
yeah.
on the work of the committee, not the policy committee, but the wellness committee.
Which would be policy JLCF-P,
Which is
right?
part of what we
Yes.
sent back to them, is that there were 2 policies there, we wanted 2 policies back. And that's
Okay.
what they gave us. I just don't think there were any changes in the base policy, but I think that'd have to be reviewed.
Okay, well, yeah, without getting stuck on this, I think part of the challenge here is gonna be get it corrected in time for second reading, the amendments, and then whether or not its corresponding policy, JLCF, should be part of it. So we're down to the wire in terms of September, so if we need 2 readings, we've got the next 2 meetings to go to. So for that reason, I don't think we should put it on the consent agenda. So moving on, is there any further discussion on policies?
Were there any more editorial changes on this policy?
I don't have any, I just have the comment that next year our handbooks have to reflect the new policy, so mental note, they'll have to be updated with some of these things.
Okay. We're now on item 9B, which is a job description, technology coordinator. Jeff?
Essentially, what this is changing the title of an existing job to align with what other districts call the person who does that job. 15 years ago, when I worked in Lincoln, in their school district, I was the technology coordinator. That was the title for the job. If you go to any school, usually the person in charge of the technology department is either the technology coordinator or in larger districts, a technology director. It's hard to explain when you go to functions, with your peers and you have some title that they don't understand about being a database manager or some other function. The job description was handed to us. We looked at it. The only change we made to it was under qualifications. The original one that was handed to us had higher experience and educational requirements. Background requirements. Otherwise, it's pretty much in line with the job that's currently being done.
Does Chrome need to be added?
I don't know whether it needs to be. I think that that might be driving too far down into the details of it. Google Apps Script, which is at the bottom on the last part of the qualifications, I think speaks to the use of those devices, managing those
'Cause
devices.
Right above that, it has Linux, Macs, and Windows.
Yeah. Chrome is an operating system. You could add it. I don't know that.
There's not that many people with experience with it yet, though, right?
I would disagree.
uh,
It's pretty ubiquitous.
So,
But we don't require, people have experience with very granular levels of software. If I had to sit down and list all the software that I knew and had experience with, it would become my life's work. There's just so much stuff out there. There's so many products out there that it makes no sense to list them all. Google, if you go to just their product list, I bet they have 50 products.
no, but isn't Chrome the highest level of operating software.
I don't, that doesn't sound like an accurate statement to me. I wouldn't want to give a definitive answer on it, but no, I don't think so necessarily.
I
The
don't
impression I've had, it's, equivalent to Windows and Mac OS.
I don't think it has any kind of near the market share that Windows has.
No, it's not near the market share,
Yeah.
but I thought that's what you were driving our new purchases towards using Chrome.
Only certain applications.
I don't-
Certainly not staff assets
No.
are not, and that's, close to half your assets in the district are staff related.
I don't think we want to make this so narrow, it's a description.
No, I would be adding Chrome.
What happens if they change it in 2 years? We have to rewrite the description.
Well, then we've spent a lot of money on Chrome products that wouldn't be feasible.
There were comments about what changes you did make. What was the original?
I don't have the original job description proposal.
I can
that
tell
was
you
put
one.
in front of us.
I don't mean to cut in. Their experience was, in the first line item, the original job description that was offered to the policy committee required 10 years of technology support-related experience, and it was reduced to 5.
I remember when we first discussed this role, there was discussion about it being database administrator, a more significant role in the district, and we were reticent at that time to do it.
My memory of that discussion, just to take it back, that was 4 years ago when the department was reduced from 5 to 3 full-time people, and the technology director position was eliminated. In that reconfiguration, one of the 3 positions was titled database administrator, and there was a lot of concern that with a title such as database administrator, you'd be looking at a significantly greater salary that was appropriate for the department, if you will. And that's one of the reasons why the position that was originally titled database administrator wound up being titled senior database and technology specialist. I just want to be really clear with everyone that this is not establishing a new position or an additional position for the department. This is going from 3 people to 3 people, and if this position were filled, we would reduce the other position. Obviously, it would be a transition from one job description for the next. Maintain the same budget and the same number of people in the department is the key, I think.
Right, and it's updating
Yeah.
our employee expertise is what.
Yeah, and I would suggest to you that the primary difference in the 2 descriptions revolves around supervision of the other 2 employees. Not that the person's going to take on an administrator role. The business administrator position still leads the department, but it sort of documents the leadership role within the small department that one of the 3 employees would take in terms of the ability to provide the other 2 direction.
Why didn't we just call it director?
That position was eliminated.
Okay. And so it really isn't that same.
And I would suggest to you that very few districts of this size have a technology director, they have coordinators. And it implies that inherent in that implication is that the business administrator, whether it be me or someone else, is still the director of the department.
Okay. Well, because you just used the word directs the others, so that's why I was.
I didn't mean direct, I thought I said provide supervision.
Supervise. Yeah, it's right in the job goal.
No, no. It's okay.
So this person would now be the chair of the technology committee rather than the business administrator?
They already are the chair of the technology committee.
Had the impression you were, but,
That's technology
Yeah.
council, that's technology council.
okay.
That's completely different. And I would suggest that the business administrator would still remain chair of the technology council. Because the business administrator still is responsible for the department.
Right.
But in terms of not being there in that department every day, all day, as the other 3 people are, it's good to have one person
So the technology committee is,
Employees only.
Yeah,
It's people,
employees
it's
only.
members of
Well,
the
then-
educational
okay.
community only.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to recommend putting this on the consent agenda.
Were any of the policies put on the consent agenda?
No.
Okay.
Any objection? Hearing none, let's add it to the consent agenda, please. Brings us to item 9C, which is surplus. And you have a motion before you to review for action subsequently, and it reads, to declare as surplus in accordance with policy DN, wrestling mats from Newfound Memorial Middle School, inclined stepper and exercise bicycle, assorted furniture in disrepair, and the following IT equipment with little or no functional value. Juniper Networks firewall, SG-140, fax machines quantity 2, assorted printers, iMac quantity 1, PC quantity 4, and assorted peripherals. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to recommend this be added to the consent agenda. Is there any discussion or objection to that? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 9D, which is the handbooks.
Could I suggest that since the football field oversight committee, which is E, is on the back of the one we just did, that we do that before the handbook? Just so we don't,
Well, I don't think that logistics matters so much as you wouldn't believe what it would take for me to correct the agenda in terms of the minutes
okay,
for me to comply with that request, so.
okay.
Under approval of modification of not having changed it.
I didn't realize it till I just flipped it over.
Yeah, I noticed myself, but, so if we could, we're looking at handbooks. Who is going to present discussion on handbooks?
I'd like to offer one
Dan?
piece of your discussion. I would ask if you do approve these handbooks, you do it subject to corrections to staff listings that may be appropriate subsequent to this meeting, prior to their publication. Because there are some staff issues, there's some staff items that are being shifted around. All staff in the buildings are listed here. Support staff haven't, maybe moved around. We don't anticipate any teaching staff being moved around at this point in time, but there are definitely some shifts, some employees who may not be returning, who are still listed. So all I ask you is subject to finalization of the staff listings, is my recommendation. Otherwise, the changes from current year are very minimal, and they're outlined in red.
Any commentary from anyone? No. I haven't had time to read the high school book, which reminds me of last year, I think.
Well, we just got it tonight, so
That's,
we wouldn't have had time.
yeah.
What do you mean you just got it tonight?
It was waiting here for us. It wasn't in our packet, the high school handbook.
Did that go out electronically prior to? Or was that just to the committee?
Well, I never got it.
I would suggest you may be able to approve the three that were in your packet, the elementary, middle school, and support staff, and then next month consider the high school with the program specialist handbook. I'm sorry, the program specialist is in your
That's
packet as
in
well.
there, too. We
Yeah.
have four,
So you have 4 out of the 5.
Yeah.
I just wonder why we need to even do this, if it's gonna be presented to us at the last minute like this. Do you have a comment, Phil?
Well, I guess my comment would be that it did go through the scrutiny of the policy committee. 2 meetings, I think we devoted to this. All the revisions that made were done, and in a timely fashion. I'm not sure why you didn't get it.
What happened last year was that we were given the policy to review, and the thing was printed before I had finished half review of it, found a number of,
But had it gone
Needed
before the
changes.
policy committee before?
I don't remember the details.
I don't, my
No. no.
recollection was that it had not gone through the process. Respectfully, what I would say here is that it has gone through the process.
Okay.
The respective schools were represented, and I thought there was, and Jeff certainly add to if I'm saying anything incorrectly, there was good discussion, there was a thorough discussion about what was in there and why there were any changes made. Because the one issue that this begs is the printing of the high school one. And I just, it was not, no one's pointing the finger, but, nor am I being defensive, but I'd like to say, from my perspective, and I think because of the policy committee, this was done in a timely fashion. The work was done, there was input, there was discussion around that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess if in the future we're going to go through them completely as the board, they probably don't need to go to the policy committee to be reviewed to begin with.
Right.
I mean, we're duplicating effort one way or the other.
We did a fairly extensive review of them last year for inconsistencies between schools and across policies at the policy committee meeting. This year, we didn't, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I don't know, but we didn't see the high school or have that explained to Paul explain changes.
We did.
Eric had explained changes at the middle.
Well, there was no discussion of the handbooks at the last policy
Not
committee.
at the last meeting.
That had been done.
Yeah.
That-
But I don't remember the high school one being discussed at that time.
I
Wasn't
think
the high
Paul-
school the
We had it.
one that, if you didn't view it right?
Paul
Was
was
read all
present,
the way
Eric
through?
was present, and Mr. Cochran, I believe, was also present at, I think at one of the sessions to provide input on, no, that was a policy, I'm sorry, but didn't the policy have to get incorporated into the handbook?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was actually discussion on the high school handbook as well for summer school credit and
Yeah.
athletic credit.
Yeah, that's where I think maybe
I bet.
Mr. Cochran had some input on.
And the language difference between the middle
Yeah.
school and, yeah,
Yeah, so we did look at it.
that's right, sorry.
Well, if the policy committee is going to review it extensively and then make a recommendation to the board, that's fine. But to present something to me with a document this size on the evening that I'm supposed to vote on it, I mean, I'm not a congressman and I don't vote on Obamacare, like they did, so I'm told, without reading it. And this is an extensive document, as far as I'm concerned. And I do read this stuff, so I need time to do that. So, for that reason, I don't want to put that on the consent agenda, because I'm going to abstain from voting on it.
You mean the high school one, or all of them?
Whatever we decide to do here with these, whatever the pleasure of the board is, but I don't want to put the high school one on the consent
Well,
agenda.
the other four you can put on
Correct.
Right.
consent agenda and just withhold it in high school.
Okay. Except for the amendment that Dan suggested we consider making, which means really all of them should be handled separately. The four that are ready to go need to be subject to final employee listings, which eliminates them from putting on the consent agenda, Dan. And then the high school one I would like to keep separate. So we're gonna split that item 9D. Any further discussion on the handbooks?
Just
So-
that we did take some time going over these. We had quite a bit of input. It would be a lengthy discussion for a school board meeting possibly, so the policy committee seemed like a good place to do that.
Yeah. And that's fine, as long as there's a formal recommendation, but again,
the
I
board
don't
should
know,
read it.
maybe I shouldn't
Yeah.
read all this stuff, but I do.
Well, I
need
agree with
time
you.
to do that, so. We're now at 9E, which is the Football Field Oversight Committee request to build a press box. At this point, I would ask, since Peter's here as chair of the committee, to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I revised some of the wording.
Oh, you did, okay.
The Friends of Newfound Football, when they started the field, they were looking to have a number of things up there, including a press box. In April, they approached the Bristol Rotary, as the Bristol Rotary has a $5,000 grant that they give out every year. There are a number of nonprofit organizations that went to the Rotary, and Friends of Newfound Football was selected to receive the $5,000 grant for construction of a facility that would be used as for storage, which would get rid of the storage area that's up there right now that's being rented by Friends of Newfound Football. It would allow for a press box, second or third level, depending on how it was constructed, would be for viewing by both home and visiting teams as well as scouting purposes. And so that would be what the facility would be for. The Football Field Oversight Committee also felt that appropriate insignia on the building would be a good idea. I always felt that since the Rotary was coming up with this grant, that the Bristol Rotary might want to sign on the press box, as well as the committee felt that there might be other area businesses who would be willing to contribute money in some way, shape, or manner, either to that or other facilities that will eventually end up there. And it would be good PR to have those businesses recognized. In addition to that, well, along with that grant, depending on what it might cost to build it, there is still the hope of getting electricity up there, because at the present time, the electricity is run off a generator. Yes?
Was there something about a facility for selling
There
refreshments?
was some discussion of whether a concession stand should go in that building or not, and that's why the motion speaks specifically more of a multi-purpose, because it's felt that maybe the concession stand shouldn't be on the visiting side of the field, because of space limitations over there, as well as more people would really be going to the concession stand on the home side. So that's sort of, it could end up in there, but that's why it's not specifically mentioned in there.
Peter, the other thing that occurred to me is, with the last, I should probably read this. The motion is going to read, instead of what you have in your packet, Football Field Oversight Committee recommends to the school board that we support the Friends of Newfound Football's efforts to achieve completion of a multi-purpose building through its work with the Bristol Rotary Club. Further, to permit insignia and other identifying placards on the proposed building. That would include the Newfound Bears insignia as
Correct.
well, right? Because I don't think it should just say the big portion of it, the Rotary International.
Right. I think that was more geared toward businesses that might contribute. It would be definitely my hope that we would have Newfie up there.
This was enthusiastically supported by the Football Field Oversight Committee unanimously. Jeff?
I would like to suggest that it might be appropriate for not just to have Bristol Rotary's logo, but to say that the building was funded through their generous donation as opposed to taxpayer funding.
So are you suggesting the motion be modified?
I don't think it requires that level.
One of the reasons that the school board has a Football Field Oversight Committee was to police exactly that commitment, because the warrant that established going forward with creating the field on behalf of the school district by the Friends of Newfound Football made it crystal clear that it was to be done without taxpayer money. And so until that changes through some form of a subsequent warrant article that the taxpayers want to assume that responsibility, that's the whole purpose of having the FFOC in place.
But I think posting that serves two purposes. It makes it clear that wasn't taxpayer money, and it also might serve as some instigation for other businesses or organizations to get involved and support.
I agree. And should also, for those who are new, the way the agreement is written up, any permanent structures on that facility must be approved by the school board. That's why we're here today. And also, as a sidelight, at the graduation last week, the senior class is donating money for bleachers for that field. And once we get that information, we will come back and get permission to put bleachers in.
Don?
The building, you've accounted for bleachers or some other sitting area where the building wouldn't
The building
obstruct.
will meet building code. Chief Yanazzi has been spoken to about it initially. The bottom level will be pretty much all storage. There will be a ladder in some way, shape, or manner to the second level. And the second level, many press boxes you don't sit in. And if you do, it's more of a stool type situation because the coaches, filmers are up and down, moving around.
No, I wasn't talking about sitting in the building, that there would be, normally the press boxes are like up at the top of the bleachers. So have you accounted for having sitting in front of the building?
There would not be sitting in front of the building as there's not enough space up there for that. Any future bleachers would be off to the left or right of that facility. There's 50 feet off the field, and that includes the area for the teams as well as spectators and this particular press box facility.
Lloyd, did you have a question?
Yeah, you got any idea of the height of the building gonna be?
No, sir.
Because there is a zoning restriction.
Right, and all that's, all that, Mr. Richardson, president of Friends of Newfoundland Football, realizes that, and he's been in touch
Before you get
with
involved
all of
in
them
this.
and is coming up with some type of design to go to them.
Is there,
I just think it's very exciting. Congratulations on the grant. And
Friends of Newfoundland Football worked very
Yeah.
hard for this, and they're the ones who went before the Rotary Club. Mr. Richardson did contact me beforehand, asked me some questions, and then he very excitedly called me and told me that they had received the grant.
Yeah, there was actually competition for it.
Yeah.
They considered several. Don?
will there be any mention of Morrison Field on the building, or
No, there's
just
a sign
strictly?
at the base of the road to the field that says Morrison Field. Now, if they decided at some point subsequent to do some more donating or whatever it might be, that would be part of the insignia we were talking about. But right now, as you enter the field, there's a nice sign
Okay.
that says Morrison Field.
That's the recognition you intend?
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a modified motion before us. When it comes time.
As I indicated, I was just cleaning up some of the language that, at least to me, made sense.
I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't hear any difference between Pete's letter and the motion before you.
So I threw in a "we," a couple little things like that.
It's pretty subtle.
I guess the first part, I don't know that the first part belongs in a motion from the board.
Where it says to support.
Motion to support the Friends of New, the one that was presented to you says motion to support the Friends of Newfoundland football efforts.
Yeah.
What's on here? I don't care.
It reads, "The Football Field Oversight Committee recommends to the school board that we support Friends of Newfoundland Football's efforts to achieve completion of a multipurpose building through its work with the Bristol Rotary Club."
Yes, and the motion off of the, whatever.
Do we have to approve the building?
Yes.
So will they have to come back with the design?
Yeah, the final plans should be presented to us.
And Mr. Richardson plans to, when he gets the final plans approved by the fire chief and building inspectors and others, he will be requesting the Football Field Oversight Committee to reconvene to look at the diagrams, and then we will be coming back here.
So is this motion just asking us to give you the nod to go ahead and look into all
Yeah,
that?
because we don't want to go after all the permits and everything and find out that, without some additional issue, that it's a bigger problem. It's done in stages.
So that motion doesn't sound quite right for the school board to say. This motion is to support, and it's made by the school board, so that would mean that we support.
Yeah.
That is sort of some advice from the Friends.
That says the Friends support that says that the Oversight Committee supports the Friends' efforts to achieve completion.
Yeah, I guess I like the original motion better.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Come to think of it. That's why we pay you the big bucks, Dan.
Should I put on the consent agenda?
Is there any further discussion or concern?
I don't know, I just want to want a consent agenda. That's not an ego thing.
Yeah. All right, hearing none, without objection, we can put this on the consent agenda. Okay. Sorry, I got the X on the wrong paper. Make that a check mark. Problem resolved. Okay, we are now at item 9F, which is the Newfound Area Teachers Association selection of the teacher liaison. Phil, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, please. I did, after our last meeting, I did contact Ms. Deidre Conway, president of NADA, to get their selection to bring forward to the board for their representative. Ms. Conway did that and explained that Mimi would again be willing to do that, and that was the person that they were recommending for your consideration. And Mimi had agreed to do so.
She was good. Yeah.
Thank you, Phil. Okay. Does anyone have any other business that we have not identified? Phil?
Do we need to list nomination election of staff here so that you can take action on that later?
Yes, we need to add that.
And if I could add yet I would just like to compliment the board. For those of you that were present, you heard me say today that in all my years, I've never worked in a district where the school board took the opportunity to recognize staff's commitment and dedication to the district, as was done today with the recognition pins and the recognition of retirees and the cookout. And I think you're to be complimented for doing that. So that was a very nice job. Comments I heard from staff were very, very positive, and appreciated the fact that you did it. I don't know if you got that feedback or not, but as a matter of public record, I would share that with you.
I think it was well done. Several members of the staff did approach us and thanked us for doing so, and something we were glad to do, and to recognize the dedication they have to the children of the district. Thank you. The only other business matter I would like to add is one of a personal note, and that is to officially put into the record the thanks on behalf of the school board for Dr. McCormick's service to us from November 1st right through the end of this year. And I would like to express my personal appreciation for his sage advice and guidance through some many issues that I may have handled differently without it. So I thank you for having served us, Phil. You've done so well. This is your, unless we have an emergency meeting, I think this will be your last school board meeting ever. that I
With an
know.
emphasis on ever. But I seriously,
By
I
choice.
thank you for the opportunity to have worked with people in district. I think some very positive things happened. My comments today were very sincere. I enjoyed making them, and I enjoyed the morning talking with staff, so thank you.
We thank you for your service. Okay, so where we are now is, if I can find it, public comment. Item 10, anyone have any public comment? Want to go on record? Okay. We're now at the consent agenda. The consent agenda under item 11. Are there any changes to the consent agenda as agreed prior? That is to include the job description of the tech coordinator, surplus property, and the football field oversight committee motion as written and submitted in your packet to support Friends of Newfound Football. Jeff?
I'd like to, the two policies that there were no issues with, we should get those approved for first reading.
I was going to take them up separately, just as an action to approve.
Okay.
So, without objection to the consent agenda as it stands, and without further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The vote is 7-0 without any abstentions. So let's see, that was 9A, 9B, and 9E. Okay.
Excuse me, no, he wasn't a, did somebody put the motion for that?
The chair entertained a motion to approve the consent agenda as agreed prior. So by consent, we voted on 9A, 9B, and 9E.
No, it wasn't a, it was
C.
BC.
I'm sorry, you're right. 9B, 9C, and 9E. Think you for pointing that out. I was looking at your...
I apologize, I thought that was the proper way.
Okay, that brings us now to 12A, policies for first reading. And I think my note here was, I would entertain a motion here to pass the policies for first reading as amended and corrected.
So moved.
So that's, the third one would be JCLF-P?
Yes,
Okay.
making that correction. So a motion is made by Ruby, seconded by Paul, to approve for first reading as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 7-0. That brings us to item 12D on the handbooks. And what I propose to do here is to split this motion into the following two, if you would. A motion to approve all handbooks presented to the school board, save the high school handbook, and subject to final, what was the comment? Final employee listings. And then I have a subsequent motion that reads, motion to approve the high school handbook as submitted and reviewed by the policy committee. So, if we could, is there a motion to approve all handbooks presented to the school board, save the high school handbook, subject to final employee listings?
Do you need to list them?
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Lloyd. Discussion.
Do you need to list them?
I think we don't know what those final listings would be yet.
Oh, the handbooks, you
No.
mean? List the handbooks.
The-
Oh, you mean the names of the handbooks?
Yeah.
We probably
Because
should, and I guess I didn't want to take the time while I was trying to keep up with the meeting to do that in the motion, but I would accept that as a friendly amendment as long as you two go along with that. Okay, so bear with me as a colon. They are the support staff. Did you have a comment?
No, sorry, I didn't know you had them out, I was gonna read them to you.
Support staff, program specialist, NMMS, and the NASD elementary schools. As modified, is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Vote is 7-0 with no abstentions. Okay, we're now at item 12D2, which is
Who moved that?
Paul moved and Lloyd seconded.
Thank you.
Sorry.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the high school handbook as submitted and reviewed by the policy committee. Moved by Paul.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Lloyd. Okay, any discussion? The only comment, again, I plan to abstain from voting on this, just as a matter of record and principle. I would like time to read these documents when they're provided to me. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Any abstentions? That would be me. So the vote is 6-0-1, Bridgewater in the minority. Thank you for your indulgence on that. And we're now at action on the Newfound Area Teacher Association Teacher Liaison. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the nomination of Ms. Mimi Freeman as NATA's selection to serve as board liaison for the 2013-14
I would like to change this.
year.
It isn't a native selection. It's supposed to be open to all
Yeah.
staff, including non-teachers. So I just have a problem with the language. It's supposed to be a faculty staff liaison, not a teacher liaison.
Yeah, no.
And so I'm fine
Yeah,
with
that is-
nominating Mimi, but I'm not okay with this language going into the record as being what that position is.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Your title on her card is faculty staff liaison.
Yeah. And it's not supposed to be a native vote, it's
Well,
supposed to be a
yeah.
district-wide staff vote.
Yeah, I think,
I don't want to hold up the nomination, I just want to change the language.
yeah, I think you're right, and it's a point we should emphasize, because it very well may not be a teacher, a faculty member that is nominated in subsequent years, so if it's put before all the faculty and staff as we intended, I guess, that would change things.
But
How would you care to read the motion?
I would like to move that we accept Mimi Freeman as the faculty staff liaison for the 2013-14 school year.
Okay, so this is going to be 12F. Move to accept Mimi Freeman as the faculty staff liaison.
And also, I just want to say, this is not a union position either, so it's open to anybody.
Mm.
So, just for the record.
Yeah, I think, I'm with you. I think that the commentary we made probably on April 29th maybe wasn't explicit enough. So I guess I accept responsibility for that. lack of clarity there. That was my fault.
And I think I contributed to it by interpreting that I would go to the president, so I contributed to that, Mr. Migliore.
Well, we did discuss the creation of the position with them, but it's supposed to be district-wide open.
For the 2013-14 year. Okay, motion is before you to accept Mimi Freeman as the faculty staff liaison for the board for the 2013-14 year. Any further discussion?
I need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, Ruby made the motion,
Second.
Sue has seconded it, okay. Thank you. No further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Any abstentions? I thought I heard you say yes. Did you say yes? Yes. Okay. Okay, that takes care of that. Now, under nominations, under other business, in non-public, we agreed to take the nominations separately. In review of those minutes, says we reviewed the nominations of Superintendent McCormick and agreed by consensus to consider election and public sessions separately. Therefore, in order of presentation to us, Superintendent McCormick has nominated, one second, I need one more sheet of paper here, where is it? Beautiful. This is 9Z1. Superintendent McCormick has nominated Alyssa Keegan to the position of guidance counselor at Newfound Memorial Middle School. Is there a motion to elect?
So moved.
Motion to elect Alyssa Keegan to the position of guidance counselor for the Newfound Memorial Middle School. Made by Ruby. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Sue. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The vote is no abstentions, right? The vote is 7-0-0. Okay. Item number 12Z2, which will be the nomination of Miss Tammy Johnson as special education teacher / case manager,
So moved.
to elect Tammy Johnson. And that motion is made by Jeff
Yep.
Second.
and seconded by Paul. Is there further discussion?
I just want to say that where she's coming from, that's a good background for us.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of electing Tammy Johnson as the special ed teacher case manager signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The vote is 7-0-0 without anyone abstaining. We are now at item 12Z3, which is the nomination of Joanna Marcotte as for the position of ICT specialist for Bridgewater Hebron Village School / New Hampton Community School.
So moved.
There is a motion to elect Johanna Marcotte to ICT specialist. Moved by Paul. Is there a second? Seconded by Ruby. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No?
Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 6-1-0 with Groton in the minority. Okay. Thank you very much. Had use for my supplemental form here this evening. Works well. Okay, we are now at the manifests.
Yes. I move to approve the manifest for the month of May 2013.
And Sue has moved and Ruby has seconded approval of the manifest for the month of May 2013. Any discussion? I think we need to review June quickly. Footnote, please do.
Yeah, you'll have one more payables run this coming Friday. So.
And that's it?
Well, yeah, the following week's payroll week, and then that's Friday, June 29th.
Oh, one more payroll, I thought you
Yeah.
meant, yeah.
Well, no, I'll have one more payable manifest this coming Friday. And so, if you can get in next week or the week after in advance of your July meeting, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yep.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Vote is 7-0-0 with no abstentions.
I would like to address that. Sue and I have been doing a good job keeping up on them, but it'd be nice if some other people would stop in once in a while.
It's good education.
It is indeed. Okay, we are now at announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? I do, if no one else does. I would like to announce that on July 1st, 2013, Stacy Buckley will be joining us as Superintendent of Schools. Having completed all of her contractual obligations to us, she has been hired. And we look forward to her service starting in July. Anyone else have any announcements? The only other announcement I have is that 1 week from this evening will be the RSA 195 committee meeting that will convene here in this room with, I anticipate, all members of the school board with the exception of myself and all members of the select board. I am away that evening because it's my 35th wedding anniversary and I had to make a choice, and I made, I believe, what was a smart choice.
We won't get 30 another year.
So Ruby, as vice chair, will be handling the administrative responsibilities for the RSA 195 committee.
One other
meeting.
amendment to that. And also, at 1 hour before, 5:30, the subcommittee on finance will be meeting again.
Oh, yeah, okay. Lloyd wants to remind everyone that the finance subcommittee of the RSA 195 committee will be meeting 1 hour prior, physically in this room, in public.
Is this where the meeting's gonna be?
Yes, right here. Regional High School Library Media Center. Any other announcements? Okay, do you happen to know the score?
Yes.
What is the score?
0-0 with 3 minutes and 34 seconds left in the first period.
Okay, so announced.
I thought you were studying something there.
The next school board, the next regularly scheduled school board meeting, which will be Ms. Buckley's first, will be July 15th.
Wow.
So please mark your calendars for here in the Library Media Center.
It's a month away.
And at this point, it's item 17, which is concluding business at the posted time of 8:50 PM. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Moved by Lloyd, not debatable, seconded by Paul.
Sure.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion carries 7-0 without abstention. Thank you all very much for coming. See you in July. Good luck with the meeting day.